Do Americans not lock their door at night? I'm a teenager and whenever I don't lock the door by accident, my mom ridicules me. And I've heard that some Americans or just some people in general just don't, and I find this unbelievable. Like even if you feel safe in your neighborhood, it still doesn't hurt. And what do you even get out of not locking? Few seconds of grabbing the keys? Some people in very rural areas don't, but I think most people do lock doors at night. I keep the doors locked almost all the time. And I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. Most Americans do lock their doors at night. Also during the day. I live in the woods, yes, I lock my doors at night. Some people might not. Everyone American I know locks their doors. If my door isn't locked 24/7, assume I am deceased. Depends on the neighborhood. There are small 100-person towns where everyone knows each other. There's also Baltimore. All America. I always lock my door. Have always locked it, even when I lived in a very small village in Wisconsin. But I do know people who didn't. Something came along that let them know that even living in the middle of nowhere Wisconsin doesn't mean you should leave your doors unlocked. I grew up in the country, we left our doors open at night. I probably should lock my door but don't. I live in a small rural town and I also have a massive dog that is very protective of my family, so I guess that's why. Rural American here. I lock every door every time. Front door, back door, bathroom door, car door, always locked. Do you realize how vast and diverse America is? The only time my door isn't locked is when a person is going through it, lol. Depends. I've lived in places where I never locked my door, even when I went out for the day. It's not really a pressing issue in our neighborhood. Although once a clearly impaired young woman walked into the house at around 1 p.m. looking for her friends who very much did not live with us. I'd assume most Americans lock their doors now. That being said, we never locked our door unless we were going to be gone for a few days. More to keep any animals out. I grew up in a very small rural mountain town. I had 4 neighbors in our entire neighborhood that was full-time residents. The rest were second homeowners that we might not see for years at a time. The small rural town has about 5x as many people now as when I grew up. I now lock my doors most nights. It is still a relatively safe area, so if I forget, it isn't the end of the world. In small towns with small populations, people might not lock their doors, but in big cities everyone locks their doors. I live in, statistically, one of the safest places in America, and my doors pretty much stay locked. There are times during the day where a door might be unlocked for a little while, but they're always locked at night. As a kid, my parents never locked the door. I'm pretty sure after a few years neither of them had keys to the door anymore. I thought this was pretty normal because that's just how I grew up. But now as an adult I've heard enough horror stories. So I always lock my doors and windows and double check them before I go to bed at night. I remember Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine film had a scene where he met some Canadians who said they never lock their doors. Possibly true. There are probably some who don't, and he seemed to extrapolate from this that Canadians don't lock their doors because they have much more robust gun control legislation. He got roundly ridiculed for that because, although Canada does have much better laws around guns, Canadians still lock their doors. I certainly do, as I don't want drunk Gord or Doug from down the street to waltz in and beat me in the head with a hockey stick. I live out in the country, far from the big city. People are pretty trusting, but I still lock my doors during the day and night. You just never know when things could turn bad. Some do and some don't. The only time my doors aren't locked are when I'm using them. There. I do. Knowing full well that if anyone really wanted in, my door lock isn't going to stop them. Keeps random people from just barging in unannounced though. Like my drunk-ass neighbor or mother-in-law. I lock it the second I walk in the door, and it stays locked. We never locked our front door in our last neighborhood Texas suburbs. I guess the thought was we have very large dogs. If they don't deter you, a lock sure won't. We expected our friends and neighbors to be able to drop by and come on in. In our new house the doors are always locked, primarily to keep certain neighbors from dropping by and coming in. Yes, it doesn't matter how safe you think it is. There are criminals who will literally walk the streets to see if cars are unlocked. Criminals are generally lazy and will reach for low-lying fruit. I don't lock the doors for my protection. I lock them so I'm not stuck explaining why I double-tapped an intruder who valued my possessions more than their life. My stay locked and I've always got a big, loud dog on my side of the door, haha. Depends on the neighborhood and person. I always lock my doors despite I not remembering the last time crime was reported where I live. My friends in another state say they never locked their doors, but they also live in a rich neighborhood where people are always watching who comes in and out. It depends. But this applies to any country. And what do you even get out of not locking? Few seconds of grabbing the keys? My relatives who do have so many kids and their kids' friends going in and out the house that it's a hassle to always lock the doors. Easier for them to leave it open and just lock it at night. I think it depends where you live. I grew up rural flyover country. Never locked the door. We would leave money in an envelope on the door for the Schwann's ice cream guy and he would just come on in and put the order in the freezer. Woman shrugging. We don't even have a lock on our front door. My entire neighborhood growing up had unlocked doors. Kids would always be out and about. Now NFW. People are so paranoid. I don't lock mine most times, but I live on a military base. Which doesn't mean I have no worries, but I feel more secure than other places. Ranch I worked on, the owner didn't lock anything because he'd rather they take what they want than break his shit. Majority of folks lock their doors every time though. I am in the US and have always locked my doors. At no point would I ever consider leaving any door unlocked. I'm not even in or from a dangerous area. I only lock the door when we go out of town for a few days. I have a pit bull German Shepherd. A pit bull Shar Pei. A full-blooded Shar Pei. The cat's pretty shady, too. If you get past them. 12-gauge WOO buck. The old lady keeps a 9W old-school black Talon rounds. Break in. Get carried out. What's left of you anyway? Edit 3 million people in the metro area where I live. Before 9/11 in rural Appalachia, we never locked our doors. It's a different world now. I think you should lock your doors regardless of where you live. Why chance it? Why make it easier for someone to break in? Wait, what kind of door locks do people have in the US? I'm confused by the replies. In Europe, when a door is shut, it needs to be opened with the key. It's just not as safe as locking it with the key. So you lock it before you go away. But most people don't lock their door when they're at home. Can unlocked front doors be opened from the outside in the US? We absolutely lock our doors at night and during the day. I'm in a rural area and yes, I always lock the door at night. I don't during the day. Sometimes I leave my garage door open too. I work from home and am in and out all day. In previous cities I've lived in, though, locked at all times.